Malta's gas prices will remain stable, Abela pledges, as Ukraine-Russia crisis escalates. Malta to allow standing events from 11th April, and PN proposes traffic tickets be waived if no other fine is incurred within 6 months. All this and more on Lovin Daily. Good evening, Malta and Gozo. Jonathan Chile here, joined by Yannick Poch. We've had quite an anxious day here in the newsroom as we've been following the latest developments in the escalating Ukraine and Russia crisis, as well as some latest updates from the election trail. We've got an interview with MP Ryan Callus today at the end of today's episode, so stay tuned for that. But before that, let's jump into today's top story. Yannick is here with the details.
Yeah, so the world today woke up with news that Russia had launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Russia has invaded the country from the east, south and north border, including Belarus. It follows weeks of speculation and troops building up on the border between Russia and Ukraine. An estimated 150,000 troops have been sent, Russian troops have been sent to the border. So images and reports we've seen coming out of various parts of Ukraine, including Kiev, show a state of panic. Explosions and gunfire can be being heard all across the country, and people trying to flee westwards towards safety. In a sense, it's the culmination of about 8 years of Russian aggression, and a moment, I guess, many people feared but didn't think would come. In fact, while the chance of an invasion was known, the scale was very much unexpected. In fact, various targets hit the capital, Kiev. The invasion has been condemned by the international community. We've heard condemnation from the United Nations, from all quarters of the world, with sanctions having also been imposed on Russia. NATO has said that it has deployed itself into a defensive position. European Parliament President Roberta Metsola has held a meeting with the leaders of Europe's political groupings, while Roberta Abela is also currently in Brussels for a meeting with EU leaders, after which we're expecting further sanctions to be announced against Russia. The Prime Minister earlier today condemned the invasion and called for diplomacy and for a diplomatic solution to be found, as did opposition leader Bernard Grech, who said he agreed with the imposition of sanctions. Roberta Abela has also moved to reassure the nation that gas prices will remain stable amid the invasion. The second news broke of the invasion, gas prices soared 19%. But Roberta Abela has said that Maltese government has already reached an agreement for the prices to remain fixed.
Malta's already reached out to Ukraine. Malta's Foreign Minister Everest Bartolo explained how he had actually been in touch with his Ukrainian counterpart Dmytro Kuleba, who thanked him and thanked Malta for publicly condemning the Russian invasion of his country. Bartolo reached out with a very brief message saying, "Dear Dmytro, thinking of you in this very difficult moment. As a small country, we cannot accept a world where might is right." Kuleba said, "Thank you, my friend. Thank you, Everest." And it's not just him. I'm sure your social media feeds are full of people expressing, interest in finding out how they can help the Ukrainian people. We've seen images of refugees fleeing the capital, Kyiv. I mean, it's kind of crazy to even call them refugees. Just a day ago, they were Ukrainian citizens. I know a lot of people are setting up fundraisers. I saw the Ukrainian community in Malta had set up a fundraiser, and I saw some local events. I saw one hip-hop event. Black Plague will be sending a number of their proceeds to the Ukrainian community to help them out. So it's great to see the heart that Malta is showing. But it's not just the Maltese. A Ukrainian journalist who lives in Malta, he's actually been living here for 2 years, his name is Art Antonin, was actually outside the Russian embassy today as a lone protester. He was carrying placards saying, "Hands off Ukraine, Russia, hands off Ukraine, Putin." So even Ukrainians in Malta are voicing their voice. I'm sure this is not going to be the end of it, so definitely stay tuned to Lovin Malta to see kind of the latest developments. But Yannick, what are you making from this? From what you're seeing online?
I mean, without ignoring the context, the regional context of the whole issue. I mean, I think it's very clear that this is a one-sided attack against Ukraine, which is ultimately a sovereign country, no matter what Russian President Vladimir Putin feels about Ukraine and whether it rightfully belongs to Russia. It is unacceptable for a country to simply invade another one, and in a sense, it shows a bit. In fact, you hear about how Russian state media is using this narrative of a genocide taking place in the Ukraine, and how Russian soldiers are there to protect people, and it does go to show what happens kind of when the rule of law in a country kind of slides when state media is hijacked to be used for propaganda. So I guess there's a lesson for us there as well, and a warning. On to our next story, thankfully slightly better news. Health Minister Chris Fearn this morning announced further relaxation of COVID measures, including the return of standing events as of the 18th of April. During a press conference this morning, Fearn announced that standing events will be allowed to take place without any restrictions. However, indoor events will still require patrons to show a vaccine certificate. He said that mask wearing in schools is also likely to be ditched following the Easter holidays. However, this is not yet set in stone, so we might have further developments on that in the coming weeks. In the more immediate term, as of the 7th March, further restrictions will be relaxed, including, for example, the need for vaccinated people to quarantine if a contact of theirs has tested positive for COVID. And people who are vaccinated will also see their quarantine period reduced to 7 days if they test positive for the virus themselves. I mean, there are a couple of other measures which have been relaxed revolving around quarantine, which you can find on lovinmalta.com. And I think finally there was another restriction, the 1 a.m. curfew for bars and restaurants is also going to be scrapped. So establishments can stay open until the time they are licensed once again, finally.
I think a lot of people were very happy to see these restrictions eased, though I did see a lot of parents quite unhappy with the situation in schools. Earlier this week we had reported on the hashtag #UnmaskTheKids, which a lot of parents were sharing, calling for their children to be unmasked within school. One mother had actually spoken to us saying that her child puts the mask on at about 7 a.m. and doesn't take it off until about 1:30, 2 p.m. and even longer if they have extracurricular activities. So it is good to see that Fearn has mentioned it, but the fact that nothing's set in stone, I'm sure parents won't be very happy about that. So if this is an issue you care about, do let us know in the comments below. Moving on to the final story today, the PN has proposed quite an interesting policy if they were elected in the 2022 general election, and that would see people who were given a fine, a traffic fine, something related to their vehicle, if they don't incur a second fine within 6-month period, that first fine is actually dropped. However, a lot of people were kind of confused about this, saying, listen, wouldn't this just lead to more anarchy on the roads? And opposition leader Bernard Grech has actually responded to that, saying, listen, the Uweya must shorter mentality is exactly what we do not want in Malta. He said this morning in Berzabuja, saying, quote, if you park badly, you get fined and park badly again the next day because you couldn't care less. You would have to pay both fines. So it seemed that Grech meant the policy is meant more for people who, maybe they go to Mater Dei Hospital and they have to park illegally briefly in emergency, etc., etc. These kind of situations, though. It was interesting to see kind of the backlash, but now that Grech has kind of clarified that, listen, if you are just doing this wantonly, you just don't care less about the rules, you'll have to pay both fines.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I have mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, I can relate to kind of having to go somewhere, as you said, as you mentioned, having to go to hospital, there not being any parking and having to kind of park badly occasionally. On the other hand, I kind of do feel like you are kind of rewarding people who have broken the law. And to a certain extent, if there's no parking, maybe you should get a bus or a cab. Maybe it's a part of the reason that we never actually make the shift to other modes of transport, because even if there is no parking, we still find a way of parking. And in this case, we're going to be forgiven. So I'm not sure. Let us know what you think in the comments. It's clearly a proposal that has gotten people talking, though. So that's it from us. Stay tuned, though. We have an interview with MP Ryan Callus coming up right after the break.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Lovin Daily. Today with me I have an MP, Ryan Callus. He's a candidate on the 6th and 7th district competing in the general election. He's the latest candidate or MP appearing on Lovin Daily as part of a campaign to bring candidates' voices to you. Hi Ryan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you,
today.
Julian, for the invitation, and hello to all the Lovin following us.
Okay, so obviously you're an MP, you're a popular figure in the PM, but there might be people out there who don't really know who you are. Just for somebody who's never met you, who is Ryan Callus and what are, your important issues?
It's true, I still meet people who do not know me when I go in-house visits. So my name is Ryan Callus, 38 years old. I'm a father to Nina, married to Maria, an engineer by profession, the only engineer so far in Parliament. So my recommendation is to remember the engineering candidates. Also, the current energy spokesperson for energy and water conservation, which is a very, very important topic, but also a topic which is close to home. And I hope we will have the time to discuss about that later on.
Yes, so it's going to be a short election, just 33 days long. What do you think are going to be the key battleground issues during this campaign?
It's a short election, but a very intense one. In my view, one of the main issues is the cost of living. Whether the Maltese are having enough spending power to save money or to live a good quality of life. We've seen prices increasing on an international level, but we've seen little or almost nothing being done by government to control or to help rather than control this increase in cost of living. A second point, which I believe many Maltese will keep in mind when voting this time round, is the quality of life. Quality of life is maybe a nice buzzword, but it means a lot. It means the conditions of your work. If you are a bus driver, these are cases which come to mind, which I meet from day to day, of people who want to live a better life. Who also, you would have people wanting better working conditions, wanting better salaries, but also this is not only about a financial, this is not only, the issue of quality of life does not concern only a financial perspective. To me, having a 3-year-old daughter, the quality of life also means where I can take my daughter on the weekend, where we can spend time together for recreation, for other times of the day. And in my view, Malta, our quality of life is lacking a lot in this sense, because we are not creating the right built environment which balances out the building envelope, but also the other environmental and open spaces.
So obviously, unfortunately today, there's nothing else we can really talk about besides, Russia. It's on the news everywhere. Russia's invasion of Ukraine. However, one thing that it's really impacted is energy prices. As you know well, Malta was already struggling to keep sort of a fair electricity rate, a fair energy rate. But now, today, after today's invasion, the price of gas has already skyrocketed. It's increased so much. What sort of impact do you think this is going to have?
First of all, allow me to make a short reflection, because most of us would immediately go to what impact, and I do not blame you for asking me that question as a journalist. But my first thought is with the families of Ukraine who this morning woke up not to their alarm clock, not to their mobile ringing, but to the sound of bombs nearby in their homes, and this is totally unacceptable. We are in 2022, and we still have new wars developing. And I think this is where the role of the European Union comes in. Okay, today is a day, and I have decided to only put one post about this event today on my social media, as a way of showing my concern at how serious the situation is. We're not speaking here about dictators. We're speaking about countries, developed countries, who are invading other countries. So that is my first thought with the families, and I hope that our European Union, which we form part of, and also the Maltese government, to start from home, does all that it can to make it difficult for the perpetrators, for Russia to continue and invade Ukraine. Secondly, I come to your question. Yes, Russia is a main producer of oil and gas, and certainly that will affect the energy prices. In fact, today before I came here, I had a look at the oil and gas prices. We've seen them increase as a result of this, new risk of having a producer possibly retaliating to sanctions that the European community might consider adopting. And this brings us, therefore, to the importance of having an independent source of energy. True, our current energy system relies mostly on gas. So firstly, the importance that Malta implements the gas pipeline. We've seen a failed attempt the first time. Now it seems that we will get the second attempt. We will support the gas pipeline funding from EU, but we will also make sure that it does not go into the wrong hands who have been or are associated with allegations of corruption and crime. Secondly, and this is what our energy policy looks into now, we have to go beyond gas. We have to go beyond fossil fuels, and something which I strongly, and my party strongly believes in when we launched the energy plan in last February with leader Bernard Grech, is our 30-year plan to make a complete transformation of the energy sector. How? Making it more green. Of the 10 energy new economic sectors which we've published with an investment of 1 billion euro, partly from national funds, the rest from international institutions, lending institutions, we are placing one of these top 10 priorities as the green transformation. Green transformation in terms of leading our industry, whether you're an SME, whether you're a small company, a medium, or a large enterprise. Our energy policy is to help you transform your operations to make them as green as possible. But we will not only stop there. We will not only incentivize the private industry to invest in green energy and transform its operation in this sense, but on a national level, we will invest substantially in, firstly, a green energy project, which is an offshore wind farm. All this government has been able to do was invest in a wind farm in Montenegro, which is, mired in corruption. Firstly, we will not stop before we get those funds back, because we have paid 7 million euro more for something which someone bought for 3 million 2 weeks before, and Malta bought it. But secondly, most important, and this is where I come to my colleagues engineers, to students who wish to become engineers, others who want to become technicians, an offshore energy project will not only make our energy industry more clean, because green energy is the cleanest form of energy, but secondly, it will create green jobs, and green jobs which are lasting jobs, which are very difficult to lose in a case of crisis. Why? Because our energy plan is mainly dependent on nature, on the wind and other sources, but which are renewable. So this is a major distinction between how Labour sees transforming our energy sector and the way we see it.
Okay, to move on a little bit. So just to get a bit of your take on what Robert Abela has said so far, he sort of hinted that energy prices will remain stable despite the current crisis, meaning that government is likely going to foot some of the bill to help cushion the impact. Is that sort of a policy you agree with at this present time?
Look, it is no secret that the hedging agreement which Eni Malta has with Electrogas on the purchase of gas is limited up until, if I'm not mistaken, April. We do support the stability of energy pricing. But let's be clear, Julian, this is not only about the price of gas. That is an issue, a major issue. And yes, we do agree in terms of keeping the price of gas and its purchasing as low as possible. But we've seen wrong hedging agreements. Now, hedging is good. I will never go against hedging. Wrong or bad hedging, which is bad, when we've seen millions of euros lost because they went to Azerbaijan to hedge secretly and at the wrong prices. Secondly, purchasing from the cheapest source. I've made continuous questions and I never get an answer to Roberta Bailan, the Energy Minister. Can you confirm that Eni Malta has always purchased from the cheapest source? And I never get a reply, yes or no. I know it's not the case. Eni Malta has not always purchased from the cheapest source. Why? Because they've bound us to buy, whether we need or not, 80% of Electrogas energy, even in instances when energy from the interconnector is cheaper. So this is another major distinction between Labour and the nationalist administration. We will always purchase energy from the cheapest source, and we can do this because we are not bound by the secrecy of these contracts, and we are not afraid that if we change these contracts, someone will accuse us of wrongdoing by politicians who have been in Labour before.
So move on a little bit. So obviously it's really good sort of hearing these policies, particularly for the energy sector, but the truth of the matter is the PN's gap to the government is what it is. It's surveys say about 40,000 votes. What can the PN do realistically to at least bridge the gap or potentially even win the election this time round?
Listen, Julian, we are working to win this election. Like many candidates from both parties, I do a lot of house visits, and in these house visits I come across many people who tell me, what difference is my vote going to make? This morning I was in Siġġiewi doing house visits, and in maybe tens of visits that I made, I've met approximately 5 who told me whether they're young, whether they're disinterested in politics, who told me, listen, what does my vote actually, to what extent is it going to change this situation? And we all know that the current surveys are showing about 60,000 voters who are either undecided or are not voting. The 60,000 voters are the key to change the current situation. So I still believe that the Nationalist Party stands a chance to win this election, but this depends on each and every person. And let us not allow people to tell us or try to convince us that our vote is of little significance. If one person thinks that, that's okay. But when you have 60,000 thinking that their vote cannot bring about the change, then it is evident that change can be brought, and it is possible to be achieved with the figures that we have at hand that can still bring about a change in the final result in this election.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Just to wrap things up a little bit, over the next few weeks, is there anything coming up people should look out for? Where can people find you, if they want to reach out and hear a little bit more about what you have to say?
Well, they can, mobiles, Facebook page, Twitter, in the visits, in house visits, social media. Politics in Malta is different like any other country. Why? Because the politician is so close to the electorate. Abroad you might find it difficult to reach a politician directly, but in Malta we are a small country, and that creates the possibility of being close to the people. So certainly our contact with the people will only increase as we go along into this election, and I look forward to continue meeting more people. So far I'm enjoying it, and I hope to continue enjoying it till the end of the campaign. Okay, best of luck on the election, and thanks everybody for following, and remember, as always, have an evening full of lovin'.